I just finished a piece. The title actually is this really a trade war? That's my question. Of course, on the surface, on the issue on the table now is a lot about tariff and trade relations. But my feeling on the situation is that this is not really a trade war or just a trade war. On the tariff, a lot of people are dealing with it because it affects them tremendously, right? But you look at it, the reciprocal tariff the U.S. is putting on the table is not real because a few countries now offer to, including the European Union, offer to have a zero tariff on both sides. And the U.S. is not buying it. So even though they say they want to equalize the situation, but that is not actually what they are aiming for. That's my feeling of it. I think behind it is a much bigger picture. Richwater, Mr. Dario, lately has a piece in the internet, and he lay out the problem the U.S. is facing and the world is facing. And I think there's a very good analysis behind all this is happening. So my point is, this is not simply just a trade war. This is involving a huge change in the whole world in all kinds of relationships. And Trump's appearance on the picture only signified important turns in American policy, not just in trade, in geopolitics, in international relations. This change is going to be huge and is coming bit by bit. And as he said, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. If you read back what Kissinger said after the Vietnam War, Kissinger made a point that we had overextended ourselves. Americans' ability to manage world affairs is not as strong as a lot of people think. That's in the 80s, last century. That's close to 50 years ago. Of course, it's very difficult for the Americans to accept this. They are no longer have the ability to manage every little and big things in the whole world. So this change of attitude, I think, is coming to a turning point. And the sharpest example is the Ukraine situation. Obviously, they cannot sustain this struggle on the American and the European side. And Trump's coming back as the president of the U.S. had made a 180-degree turn on the issue, which raveled the Europeans, and resetting the whole international relations into a new era. And all this change, I think, is crucial, that more and more Americans, and now signified by President Trump, wants to change the whole picture, accepting that America no longer can manage everything in the world. So this is a very messy and complicated situation. And everybody, country large and small, has to deal with this. And of course, there's many discussion from the American side. For example, by increasing tariffs, they can solve their deficit problems, which I think is ridiculous. But that's one of the arguments they use, and that's completely domestic. It's not international. They want to collect this tariffs income to balance out their huge deficits. That can be one of their objectives, right? All these issues around trade and tariff, of course, are real issues. But what the Americans trying to do is not just have a fair trade relationships. It's more than that. Just to deal with the trade issues, and it's not just the tariff. They want to get rid of any other regulations that unfavorable to U.S. exports, so-called fair trade, right? IPs and other restrictions. For example, what the Japanese put on their agricultural product imports. The Japanese are very strict about this. No external agricultural product can export it to Japan. They want to get rid of all this. Those are trade issues. And it's not just money. A lot of them are regulations and in policies by various countries. But that's only on the trade level. What I'm arguing is that I'm not dismissing these problems. But behind this, America has a huge, much bigger agenda behind all this change. We have to face this too. The Thucydides Trap argument. If you look back at history, that a rising power was subject to the predominant hegemonic power, which fearful of the challenge, would start a war to try to prevent that from happening. Professor Graham Allison, I think he doesn't want a war between US and China. But according to his reading of the history, the experience is the danger is not coming from the rising power. The danger comes from the power who want to keep the status quo. And usually they are the ones who start the war with the challenger. So my advice, actually, I told him that he should stay in Washington and not to be so aggressive to protect their own status. But objectively, this is what's happening. China is getting stronger and stronger, and America is fearful that his position in the world would be taken away by China. And I think they are taking all kinds of measures to try to stop this, or at least to delay this. That's the biggest issue. When China said we're going to have a peaceful ride, and China had constantly stressing that our development does not challenge anybody, that's our position and our attitude. And obviously, by looking what the Chinese are doing, we are not messing around with anybody else's business. We try to improve our living standard, get our country stronger, and defend our basic interests. But the other guy, in this case, the US, is threatened by the simple fact that this country is getting bigger and bigger, and we cannot manage it. The dominant power, the US, feels threatened